Hello again, everybody. This is Dan Clouser, and welcome back to the Journey of My Mother's Son podcast. Yeah, I'm joined with Danielle Matthews, who's a brain trauma survivor, a renowned public speaker, and an ASCA Diamond executive. Danielle, thanks for joining me today.
Hey, Dan, thanks for having me on.
Absolutely. Looking forward to the conversation. But before we get started, just introduce yourself to the listeners, in your own words. Who is Danielle today?
Oh man. I'm a biologist that is fascinated by the human body. And I have, because of a car accident, opened up to the spiritual world as well. And so I've spent the last 10 years exploring what it means to power the potential within us of our bodies to heal and of our spirit to really create the life that we want.
Yeah, I love that. I love that. So let's talk about what got you going down that path. I mentioned it in the intro. You're a survivor of brain trauma. You mentioned a little bit, but let's expand on that, a little bit more, because I think that's kind of you know, the nuts and bolts of your story leading you to.
Yeah, it's kind of where it all began. For sure.
um,
I was a
so
pretty, yeah, go ahead.
yeah, so you were, I believe, 23 years old when you were in a really bad car accident involving a drunk driver, and kind of left you in this, I guess, a state of what's next.
Yeah.
So, how did you get through that, and what was it specifically that kind of led you down that path of seeking spirituality and
Yeah.
all that sort of stuff to get you through that time?
Yeah, I always say it was like I was crashed awake because the life I had been living before was, a pretty normal life. Like I went to a great school, I got a great job out of college, I was living, the dream. I was telling you before, like I was out in Colorado snowboarding, like I was teaching, I did teach for America. And then all of a sudden, like my world came to a literal standstill because of this car accident. I sustained a brain injury in it. And I wasn't able to concentrate. I was dealing with a lot of migraines, sensitivities to noise, to light. So I attempted to go back to work, but it was clear very quickly that I couldn't handle it. And ultimately lost my job and therefore had to move back in with my family because I didn't have an income. And, at 23, you don't really have a plan B like set up for yourself yet. So I was very fortunate that I could go home, but it was interesting because my whole life I had really identified with the person I was in the world. Okay. So if you were to say, who's Danielle? I would have said, oh, she's a star snowboarder. She's like a teacher. She's great at this, at that. She's a great friend, a great daughter, all these things, like the character, the person I was in the world. My brain injury happened and it was like, okay, well, you can't teach, and I'm being told you'll never snowboard again, and you can't even hang out with people. You have no desire to talk to anyone because it's so overwhelming. So here I am, like in a dark room. We had to put blackout fabric up because the light was so much for me, and just with myself. And without all those things, quite frankly, Dan, I was like, well, who am I? And I remember I would like look in the mirror and I looked like this. Like I looked like normal because you can't see brain injury. And it was a really difficult time. And I'll say, I was dealing with depression, I was dealing with anxiety, I was having panic attacks. It was not a pretty situation, but I, the kind of crux of it happened a year into it, where my neurologist said to me, Danielle, with your type of injury, the body's done the healing it will do, and this is your new normal, and you need to adjust your life around it. And I remember thinking to myself, well, you're fired because there is no way this is going to be my life. Like, I can't live a life. Like, it's not worth living, is how I felt when he said that to me. And I thought, no, I'm going to get better from this. And I realized, and there was like this, now I think of it as like an equation. Like, you've got the external world plus your internal response to it, and that creates your reality. And my internal response to my injury had been one where I was angry, resentful. I was not accepting it. I was trying to like claw back this life that I had had. And, it was, the reality was one where I was filled with anxiety and panic attacks and all of that. And so I thought, okay, I can't change the injury. I can't change that the accident happened. I haven't yet found the solution to recovering from the brain injury, but I was convinced I would. And I said, all right, I do have a choice here. Like I had been in this victim mentality. And I watched so many other people in this space too, where it's like, well, something out of my control happened. And therefore, like, you actually have given your power away. And I said, no, like, what can I control? And I said, you know what? I can decide to be happy. Like, that is actually an internal decision, despite all that's going on. And it was suggested to me to try a gratitude journal, which, we hear people talk about, but I'm like, I'm going to actually do it. Like, I'm going to commit to doing this thing. And I would stare at that piece of paper. I told myself, before you go to bed, just write one thing you're grateful for. And for the life of me, I couldn't figure out anything when I started. But then it was like I rewired my brain because I was forcing myself to look for the good. It got to the point where it was like I thought of hundreds of things that I could be grateful for. The food that I had that was delicious, the sunrise I saw, like time to spend with the dog. Like, there were just a million things that you can be grateful for. And it forced me to be present because I didn't know what the future was going to hold. And I said, okay, let me just be present in this moment. And it was shocking to observe when you're in that presence, and I think this is what spirituality teaches you, right? To be present in the moment and, and flow from there. And I was kind of forced to be. And it was interesting what unfolded from there, because I started to observe things that I guess in the hustle and bustle of life, like I had never stopped to observe before. And one of those things that I was observing was the people around me. And it wasn't from like a judgmental space. It was more like this curiosity of like, what I started to see, Dan, was like, it was as if people were on this like track, like they were doing the same things, like repeating the same behaviors. They were interacting and reacting to situations almost like I already knew what was going to happen. And I started getting really curious, like, well, why is that? And I started to realize like I wasn't immune to it. I also had these like patterns and ways of thinking. And so I got really curious about myself. And I've since had a teacher explain it in a way that I love her analogy, but she said, Danielle, it's like everybody's wearing sunglasses and you're observing the world, the present moment, through some lens of a past experience, something you haven't released. Like maybe you always feel, some people have a lens of it, like they're just angry. Some people feel that they're not worthy. Some people feel they're unlovable. Some people are just in fear. And I realized like, oh my gosh, like life is unfolding in a way for you to figure out what glasses you have on that aren't serving you anymore. Okay. I don't know if that makes sense, but it's like, to me, every challenge, every obstacle, like the external world is like trying to teach you and show you, hey, this out here isn't the problem. It's your reaction to it that's the problem. And you got to move these sunglasses away. And when you're present, like you'll see the beauty of what's unfolding and that it's all actually unfolding for you. So what kind of pulled me out of the emotional thing, I call it mind control. I wrote an ebook on this topic because it was like, wow, if everybody could realize what I got the opportunity to realize and observe, they'd set themselves free.
Yeah. Yeah. I love that. And, I love just, so much of what you said resonates with me. Number one, just being that, you can't control what happens to us, but we can always control how we react to that. And that's such an important lesson for people to learn.
Yes.
To just understand that, yeah, there's going to be things in life that we can't control, but we can always control how we react to it.
Yep.
And also when you said that, being happy is literally a decision,
Yeah, it is.
it's a state of mind. And, you can get caught up in, all the bad crap that's happening to you, or you can look at those, one or two or three, grateful things, and then, find out that it's a lot more than one or two or three. And, the list just goes on and on and on. So, what was that, how did you get out of that funk of the victim mentality, of the anger, and, deciding, what, again, I can't change what happened, but moving forward, I can, take a new path. What was that process like for you?
So it was initially, it was these like thoughts that were popping up in my head. And I was like, wow, this is interesting. Like I've never looked at the world this way. And then I went internal and I was like, all right, Danielle, so like what choices are you making in how you're observing the world? And, what decisions could you change internally that are going to shift how you do, how you interact? And around the same time, my mom introduced something called yoga nidra to me. And she said, Danielle, this practice has to be done laying down in a dark room. And I was like, I'm in. I can do that. And it was a guided meditation. Okay. And this guided meditation, like she kind of walked me through it the first time. And I fell asleep and stayed asleep for the whole night. And that was huge because with my injury, my brain kept like turning, I was exhausted, but it kept turning on. So I wouldn't sleep for more than a couple hours before I was like alert again. And it was the first time I had a full night's sleep. And so I said to her, can you record that? And then I'll just listen to it. And I started to listen to it during the day. Like if I felt a migraine coming on, I'd go into the dark room, I'd turn it on, I listen to it. I didn't realize that in doing that, like the yogis were incredible. They created meditation as a tool to help you release yourself from your thoughts and realize that you are more and that there is something beyond all of those thoughts, and to really connect you with that part of you. And now I was having this mental like realization of like, oh, these thoughts aren't serving me. How do I change them? And then through the meditation, it was like, wow, I was getting to this space where I could actually like totally disidentify from them and realize that there was more. And in doing that, honestly, it was like the anxiety and the depression and the panic, like it literally just like rolled away. It just all of a sudden wasn't there. And I think it was because of doing this practice. I didn't know what I was doing at the time, but now I understand what I was doing. Because I was doing it daily, it was like, I mean, I think of the biology of it, right? My parasympathetic nervous system was getting activated, which is the rest and the restore. And my body was having a chance to like process the trauma and process everything that was going on and release this stuff. And it was really, really powerful doing those meditations. And I actually got super intrigued. So there's a woman, my mom was a yoga teacher. She owned a yoga studio and she would teach teacher trainings, and she would bring in a woman named Kamini Desai who taught the yoga nidra part. And Kamini was starting to write a book on it. And she asked me, because I couldn't work, I couldn't like commit to a job. She asked me if I would help, just like the research, which as a biologist, something I can do. And so it was so interesting to get this window into meditation from the scientific world, which was how my, brain was used to looking at things, and seeing like, wow, like there's so much research out there showing biologically, like how meditation shifts your body. And then I'm like experiencing it physically myself, what it's doing. And that was a really key part for me was the meditation. And that, created the curiosity as to like, well, who came up with meditation, and like, how did they know to do that? And, what else do they know? And that got me kind of down this route of yogic philosophy, which is amazing. It's like yogis spent their life contemplating questions like, if there was a single truth that, if known, solves everything, what would that truth be? And what they came to was that it's the realization that you're more than your thoughts. And if you realize that there's more to you than that crazy mind of yours and all that chatter, that there's something there before, during, and after every thought, and you can connect with that, that's the essence of who you are. And I was like, holy cow, this is like the experience I'm having in my life, So all these things sort of just came in together and helped me pull myself out of it. But it was an internal decision, Dan. Like there's, people were trying to help. I was going to therapists. I had a psychotherapist. I had a cognitive therapist, and they were trying to help. But I remembered it felt like I was in like a dark tunnel. And there were all these colorful things on the outside of the tunnel, which were all these people, my friends, my family members, the therapist. But it was like no one could reach me, like they were there and they were trying to help, but I was just in the dark. And it was this, literally, it was like the light had to come from within me. I don't know how else to describe this. And I've never actually put it in words like this before. But when that came out, it was all of a sudden like the tunnel wasn't dark or scary anymore. And it was like I had to find my own light, if that makes sense. And it was this self-awareness that allowed me to then go, oh, I have this inner strength and I could pull myself out of it. And the something that I didn't realize at the time that I had done was I tapped into the law of vibration, which a lot of people talk about the law of attraction, that you can you attract in what you think about. But that's like a secondary law. Primary is the law of vibration, which states that, the level of frequency that you're vibrating at, you attract in at that frequency. It's just like how it works, like gravity. It's just the way it works. I didn't realize that in shifting myself, pulling myself from fear, from anxiety, which is a very low vibration, right? Very low frequency energy, up to one where I was in a space of happiness and joy and gratitude. Shifting that allowed for different things to come into my world. And the answer to my physical challenges actually was drawn in. And so I had this realization that, wow, we can actually create our world from the inside out. And I'm like, I'm so grateful that I went through that, because I don't think I ever, had I not had that accident, like I never would have had to pause and realize the power I had within, it taught me that.
Yeah. Yeah. One of the things I want to talk about, you mentioned earlier about, being in the moment and being fully present and stuff like that. And I think, that's one of the things that since Sandy and I have started this, full-time RV journey, we've been, much better at being present and being in the moment. People ask all the time, what's one of the things that, is tough about RV life? And it's, obviously being away from our family. However, the silver lining of that is that we are very much, we're a lot more intentional when we are with them and spending that time with them than what we ever were in the past. Because I think, as human beings, I think it's just our nature to take things for granted, to think that tomorrow is guaranteed.
Yeah.
But truly, the only thing that is guaranteed is this moment that we're in right now.
Mm-hmm.
And, I think, did it help you, did some of your understanding of being able to be in the moment come from the fact that when you reflected back, and as bad as that accident was, the truth is it could have been much worse. And
Oh yeah.
and it, apart from just having a brain injury, you could have lost your life. So is that one of the things that helped you reflect and be more intentional, understanding that, wow, tomorrow's not guaranteed. I got kind of a second chance here. What am I going to do with it? Can you talk a little bit about that?
Absolutely. It was like, I was doing everything right. Okay. I was living my life in a way that I'd say anyone would say, like, it was, right. Like I wasn't hurting anybody. I was doing good things. I was giving back to the world. I had gone out the night before with a friend for his birthday, spent the night there. Then I woke up super early, 7 a.m. to go meet my parents. We're going to a wedding. Right. So this is like, I'm just living life. And this guy has made this decision to drink and get behind the wheel, passes out, and hits me. And I'm like, I did nothing wrong, and my life could have ended. And it was a very intense thing to like integrate because you think you're invincible, at least in your 20s, right? You're like, no, I got a whole life ahead of me. But it was like, no, it's not guaranteed. And it might not be a choice that you make that ends things, like life just happens. And that has like the car accident happened on June 23rd of 2012. And I'll never forget that date because it's like New Year's for me. Like no matter what I'm doing or where I am, each year on that day, it is this reality check for me. It's a literal gut check of, are you living with purpose? Are you maximizing every day? Are you doing what you came here to do? Because tomorrow's not guaranteed. And, life, we can so easily get like pulled up in all the chaos of life. But that is such a root for me. And it's not that I live in fear. By no means is it like I'm scared. It's like it's helping me stay more alert and conscious of the beauty of what I have here in this life.
Yeah.
And it's made me very passionate about helping wake up other people to it. Right. And living my life by an example of saying, look, like, why are you staying in a job or a relationship or something that you don't like and that's not serving you? Because tomorrow you could be gone. what are you waiting for? And the only person that's going to change your life is you. Like, you got to look in the mirror. Like, that's the one that's going to change it. And it's going to take an internal decision. And no, it's not going to be easy, but you're so powerful. Like, I just want people to understand the potential that is like sitting inside of them, just waiting to be unleashed. You know, I had to go through an intense trauma for it to be unleashed. And I didn't know this term before. It's called post-traumatic growth. Like, people talk about PTSD, post-traumatic stress disorder, all the time. People don't talk about post-traumatic growth. And I'm like,
Phrase.
that's what the trauma was there for. Like, I truly believe you, I don't know if it's your higher self, I don't, whatever your beliefs are, God, the universe, whatever it is, there is a reason something is being served to you. Like, it is an offering for you to realize that you can overcome it and what's inside of you. But like, this human mind of ours gets so confused and lost and in a victim state. And like, when we hit challenges and obstacles, it's supposed to be gearing us up to get more powerful, to take us to the next level of our life. And you have to have challenges or else you're not going to learn. But we like somehow missed that. We're like just butting our heads against the challenge and the obstacle, and we're not going to get anywhere, and we're exhausting ourselves. But I'm like, let me tell you, it's there for you. Like, that accident was orchestrated, I believe, truly. Higher self, God, the universe, whatever. It occurred for a reason to teach me this lesson. So now, with that knowledge, like, nothing knocks me. You know, when this pandemic set in, I remember calling my sister and like joking. I'm like, oh, all you guys are now experiencing what I experienced, locked in the house, can't do anything. You know, it wasn't your choice. Like, I said, but try doing that with a brain injury and feeling like hell. I said, you know, you at least have your health. And like, it didn't faze me at all. All I kept asking myself was, all right, well, what's this challenge making possible? You know, like, what am I meant to learn here? What's going to come out here? And for me, it was like how to grow my business internationally and do it online and meet incredible people like you. It's just been like such a cool thing, but it was my perspective on the challenge. And that is something that I just, if anyone takes away, if you take away nothing else, like, take away that, like, whatever is in front of you, it's supposed to be teaching you. Like, the antidote is inside of it, and it's actually inside of you.
Yeah, that's so powerful. And, you know, again, so many lessons to learn there.
Yeah.
And I never heard the term, you know, post-traumatic growth, but
Right.
that's a big deal. That's a keeper for sure.
Yeah. I don't know why people don't talk about it. And it's like, the other thing, it was so interesting. So I was in a support group with brain injury and stroke survivors, and the same people, they're called the Trauma Survivor Network. They had a group of spinal cord injury. And I remember one of the like counselors saying, you know, it's so funny to go between these groups, because the ones with spinal cord injury are always like, man, thank God we didn't have a brain injury. Like, we still have our minds. And then they come to us and we're like, thank God we didn't lose like our legs. Like, we can still at least walk. It's like, it was so interesting to see like, oh, like, the human spirit is just like, it's incredible. And there's still always something to be grateful for. Like, something else always could have occurred. But yeah, you're very much correct. And I love the question that you asked, because it is a thing that is there always in my mind that keeps me alert and conscious about intentionally living every day.
Yeah. Yeah. Which is just, like I said, it's so important. And for us, I think one of the things that, you know, since we've started this RV journey, we've experienced a lot of loss. We've actually lost a lot of friends and a lot of family members. I mean, this year alone was a very tough year. We lost my sister-in-law, we lost my aunt, we lost a dear friend of mine, used to be a customer of mine, as well as some extended family. And I think when you go through that, you know, similar to a car accident where you could have lost your life, but again, you value, you know, every moment that you have with those people, you know, so much more than what you know, ever did before. So, you know, you went through this growth on your own. I mean, not on your own, you obviously had help, you had a team around you helping you get through it. But what was it once you got through it and you were able, you know, to get on the other side, so to speak, that made you want to, you know, what I would consider give back
Mm,
and help others, you know, get through, you know, similar, maybe not brain trauma, but some other sort of trauma, to
sure.
really understand, to, you know, take advantage of the moments that we have?
Yeah. Well, it was interesting. What I had to get my health back, and so that happened because of an acupuncturist that had been a student of my mom's at the yoga studio. She called my mom one day and she said, Lynn, I've come across a breakthrough. I've been using it in my practice. It's something called redox signaling. And she said these molecules, they stimulate cellular signaling that basically help your body identify where you have damage and repair it. And she said every client's having results with this stuff. And I believe that this could pass the blood-brain barrier and help Danielle. And without getting into the whole story, I was resistant to it. I thought it was too good to be true. I refused to use it for like 6 months. The biologist got in the way. But eventually I started using this stuff because it was stated that it couldn't contraindicate with the medicine I was on, and it was completely safe, no toxicity. And it was like, all right, well, it can't hurt you. It might help you. So I started to use it. And 3 months in, the pounding that had been relentless for 2 years in my head stopped. And I started to be able to concentrate again, and I had energy again. And I remember my cognitive therapist saying to me, Danielle, I've worked with brain injury for 30 years, and I've never watched such a rapid recovery so far out from someone's initial trauma. She said, with your injury, it simply doesn't happen. And she said, what the hell is that stuff you started drinking? And I had to laugh because I said, I don't know, I thought it was salt water. I said, I don't know what it is. And it was this stuff behind me, this ASEA. And because of her, she said, well, we got to learn because my other clients need to know. And so I got on a phone call with a gentleman named Dr. Silverman, and he was on the medical board of this company. And he started to explain to my therapist, not me, but to her, what this was and how it worked, and that he wasn't surprised by, the results I had had. And he simply said, well, how much did you drink and how long did it take? And he said, there's not a health challenge I haven't seen this touch. It goes in and it just stimulates your body to find where it's damaged and to repair itself. And I got off that call and I thought, the potential of this is so massive. And I thought, how uniquely prepared am I for this? Like, I have a degree in biology. I spent a couple years teaching. Now I've come through my own health journey and I've got a breakthrough in my hands. And I thought, that feels like it was by design. And I am in a position, I almost have a responsibility, is how I felt, to share this. And all I can say is it's like a fire got lit in me. It gave me purpose. It was like so clear that I was supposed to help others realize this and share this technology, but also share the mindsets that came along with me pulling myself out of my own health issues. And so I was starting to feel better, right? So I was able to move out. I moved down to Florida, Melbourne, and I didn't know anybody except the guy I'd moved down there to be with. And I just had this fire in me that said, you're meant to help. You're meant to share this. And so I literally Googled like networking. Like, I didn't know what I was doing. Like, my degree's in biology. I'm like, I don't know how to do this. And something popped up and I got into action. Okay. So I went to this group, and I kid you not, the person that welcomed me that day turned into one of the greatest mentors of my entire life. He and his wife taught me everything that I needed to know about business, about how to share with people. And I just kept getting into motion, and this fire just started to burn brighter when I saw that because I made this decision and I got into action and I started educating about this technology, I started to change people's lives. And I'll never forget, the first person was a massage therapist down in the Melbourne area. Her husband had a stroke and 2 brain injuries within a year. And she said, can this stuff help? And I said, well, help me, and I watched his life in like a 90-day period come back to him and them to be able to have a relationship again. And I thought, wow, I can't think of wanting to do anything else with my life, because I'm literally shifting and changing people at the core with their health, and then also giving them a vision of the potential for them to do the same for others, or for them to move out of what they're currently doing that's not giving them any sort of like passion or zest for life, and come join me on this mission. And so I've just held that space, and I don't know how else to say it, except it was like the fire got lit from within. It was like almost like I didn't make the decision, because you would find this hard to believe, but I previously didn't really like talking to people. I was very nervous. I was very quiet. Like, when I went out to my first like networking meeting, I just sit in my car afterwards for like 15 minutes because I was literally shaking and felt like I was going to throw up. So I just was moved by something bigger than myself, is all I can say. And that has turned into, now 7 years later, I've helped thousands of people with their health. I have gotten to be in the position now to lead a team of people globally that are interested in doing the same. And most of the conversations I'm having with them are about their own mind and what's blocking them from actually tapping into the potential, that's within them.
Yeah, I love that. And
Yeah.
it's funny you said about you don't really like talking to people, because honestly, I'm the same way. I'm
It's funny.
good by nature. When I used to, when I was still with our organization, I'd have to go to networking events. I absolutely hated them with a passion. And I think the difference, why I can jump on a podcast and have a 10-minute pre-conversation before we hit record and feel like I've known someone my entire life, is because it's a different type of networking. Like, there's real connection here. Like, that superficial stuff where it's all about well, what can I get out of this person? What do they want from me? Like, I just had no time for that. But real true human connection, like, that flips the switch for me, for sure. So I can definitely relate to that as well. It's pretty amazing. Um, is there anything that we didn't cover that you think would be valuable to the listeners before we sign off here?
No, I'll just say if anything's resonating, I'd love to gift everybody that ebook. It's a little bit deeper dive into the concepts I was talking about with those sunglasses. And my hope is that it can help people see the challenge in front of them as an opportunity. And I'd be happy to gift that out. I'll give you the link for that so people can download it. And the only thing I'll say is, if you have a challenge with your health, reach out. All I know is I've set a very clear intention that, my voice reaches the people that need to hear it. And so if you're hearing this and something just zinged inside of you, reach out, let's have a conversation. I'm all about education. Learn how this might be able to impact you or a loved one. And let's see what we can do together.
Yeah, I love it. Yeah, we'll definitely put a link in the show notes to the ebook. I'm sure listeners would appreciate that. In addition to the ebook, if somebody wants to reach out and connect with you, how do they find you on the internet? Where can they find Danielle?
Sure. So Instagram, you can easily find me. It's just my name, Danielle Matthews. It turns out there's other Danielle Matthews out there, so I had to have an underscore on either side. So to put the underscore first, Danielle Matthews underscore. And the easiest way, if you want to contact me, if you go to danielle.teamasea, ASEA.com, there's a picture of me and a button that says contact me. So it's the first thing you'll see there, and that shoots me an email, and just put your phone number, your email in, and let's connect and have a conversation. On my Instagram and on my Facebook, just go to Instagram. You can link to everything else, right? It's the easiest way to do it. But I'm constantly posting things about what I talked about today. Just keeping your mind right so you can tap into the potential that's inside of you.
Yeah, I love it. I love it. Danielle, that brings us to our final question. As you know, the subtitle of the podcast is Many Little People in Many Little Places, which comes from the opening lyrics of a Michael Franti song, Gloria, which go, when many little people in many little places do many little things and the whole world changes. So it's one of the little things that Danielle does on a daily basis to make the world a little bit better place.
Yeah. So in my meditations, I that light that I was talking about that's within, I've realized the power of it and that it can be sent out. And so I will hold certain people in my heart, in that light, every single morning. And sometimes it's the whole earth, because I felt like there is so much that's needed on this planet right now with all the shifts and changes that are happening, that I just send light out in that way. And it's amazing because sometimes the people that I'm holding in that space, they end up calling me that day or sending me a text message. And so I know it's working. I don't fully understand the quantum world, but I know that everything is connected and we hold a lot of power within. So that is a little thing that I do every day.
That's so cool. I love it. Danielle, I really appreciate you taking the time and joining me today. This is an amazing conversation. Really enjoyed having you on the show. And for folks out there listening, be sure to check out my other podcasts and blogs at journeymymotherson.com or danclouser.com. While you're there, pick up a copy of my most recent book, The Journey of My Mother's Son, Volume 1. Danielle, thanks again. This is a great conversation. Really appreciate it.
Thank you, Dan. Appreciate you.